to get an ass kicking.
Hello and welcome to This Week in Wildstar, Episode 2. Today I'm joined again by the lovely Mr. Nuttz. How you doing today?
Good.
Wonderful. Fantastic. And today we have our first special guest. Hooray! We have Ryan, who is the co-lead of Legendary Souls. How you doing today, Ryan?
I am doing great.
You sound like you're very happy to be here.
I am extremely happy to be here, actually.
Well, thank you for coming on. Today we have to talk about Mr. Gaffney talking a lot this week, all over the place. He's talking about the art of balancing player feedback and the hard data, a new Wildstar Wednesday, UI 2.0 overhaul, the beta, currently only seeing a very small % of the player base who have actually signed up. A hot topic on Reddit this week, we had people talking about Oceanic Servers and data centers, and some interesting Twitter updates. So we'll get to talk about all that. Alright, so Gaffney went on Reddit this week and responded to somebody talking about not being in the beta, that they'd signed up forever ago, that they've seen tons of people that have signed up forever ago and still are not in the beta. So he actually responded and gave us some hard information, which was very surprising to a lot of people. He actually said they invite 3,000 to 10,000 new people every week, and even with that many people, they've still only invited 3 to 4% of the people who have signed up for the beta. 3 to 4% while inviting 3 to 10k new people? That's ridiculous. It's like 96% of the people are still not in the beta.
That's a lot.
That is.
At least we know a lot of people are into it. I mean, yeah, I think maybe some people applied more than once.
Mm-hmm.
That might be a thing, but still, I'm thinking maybe 2 or 3 accounts may have applied for it, but that's still a lot of people.
Yeah, because they said something a while back about that they could see if people had used like bots or whatever to try and sign up for the beta, and they actually eliminated a lot of those.
Oh, really?
They said that a lot of people did sign up 2 or 3 times, which they were okay with that, but even still.
Yeah, I myself have applied 3 times.
Yeah, I'm sure most people have done at least 2. I've done 2 myself. But that's just, I mean, that's ridiculous if you think about the amount of people. Like, what does that say for the popularity of the game and just how much hype there is behind it right now?
Yeah, I really didn't know that there was that many people into it.
So I was curious because the fact that they've invited that many players and still haven't invited a huge quantity, I kind of am curious, will they still have the amount of technology to handle a larger population of players?
The server tech in place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's why they said they haven't invited more people, is because they just don't have the hardware to support the amount of people. They refuse to give us a number, though. They've said that they might do a press update at some point or something. But yeah, that's exactly why they said that they haven't just invited everybody, is they don't have the tech to support it.
Right.
Do you think that they'll still have the tech for release or no?
I think so. I think that it seems like to this point they've done really well with letting people in. From what I hear from feedback on stress tests and things like that, that those all go really well, and I would assume that they invite, you know, obviously more people than are currently playing in the stable beta. So I would think so. I mean, any game that launches typically has a rough launch, though.
Right.
Because you're always going to get like a surge at the beginning. So it's not to say that the launch won't be, or the launch will be perfect, but I think that they'll understand, you know, at that point. They'll have like pre-orders and things like that. So they'll understand at that point what exactly they need to.
They already started like advertisement, right? GameStop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, GameStop has signs up and stuff. You can actually already pre-order the game. It doesn't even have a release date yet. Yeah.
Oh, man, I gotta do
but,
that.
you know how GameStop likes to jump on the ball there, and you can pre-order it. But
Get me one of them signs.
oh, yeah. That'd be great. One of the posters. Those things are awesome.
So on Wildstar Wednesday this week, they released a preview for the new UI that they are going to be using, I think, in the full game. Is that what the idea is?
Yeah.
Or they're working on it at least?
Mm-hmm.
So the previous one, or is it the current one? Current state of the UI, is it the pyramid experience?
They said that the current UI is like a pyramid where it just has all of the elements stacked on top of each other.
And that's what they want to change.
Mm-hmm.
When you've seen like the dev speaks or the live streams, you'll see all the abilities in the ability bar, and then things just kind of stack on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think their whole thing with that was it took a lot of space, and it kind of looked like it did. They actually said it takes about 26% of the screen when all the bars and stuff are turned on and stuff like that. So it took up a pretty good.
It's a pretty sizable chunk of landscaping on your screen there.
The target frame is like in a weird spot because I think they said it was at the top of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to look at the target frame, they'd actually have to look away from the action, which is really important because of the telegraphs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
definitely.
actually look at the target screen, and that could be a valuable time, even though it's just like a quick look.
Yeah, they took it from the top left corner where most traditional MMOs would put it by default. Not to say most people don't move it with like add-ons or if the game allows you to. But yeah, they took it from the top left corner by default and put it down in the center. And it looked better from the targeting frames because the way that I've seen on a lot of the streams and stuff is that when you target a mob, it has like other mobs attached to it. Basically, they're chained. And if you pull it, it'll pull all those mobs. But it had them displayed in a weird way, like it was a circle around the circle of the target you were fighting. Mm-hmm. So they did a better job of just pulling that right to the middle and then having a target of target kind of thing, which most people are more used to in a traditional MMO setting.
Right.
And like you said, it moved it away from, looking away from the action to right in the center of your screen. So that really helps. They
also have most of the UI elements, so let's say you don't like the new thing, but you like the old thing. Or like how it looked before, you can actually customize the UI.
Yes, that's so good. I think I even saw something in the article that said it can be programmed to turn it completely on or off, or you can have it so like if you're in combat and you want it to only pop up while you're in combat, you could do that, or you can have it so it's completely off while you're just running around doing your thing. That way you can see the world. So that's a nice feature to add to it too. Yeah, they said pretty much everything in it is customizable.
That's good. I like that.
You can move it all around. You can change the opacity
the way you want it.
Yeah, exactly.
I really, really like the way they had put it now. It opens up majority of the screen, which is something that I've always found to be important in all games, not just because there's telegraphs. And not being able to see the action and where to stand is a huge thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So when they moved it down, I really like that. My only concern is and you actually told me that you can customize it because I like having things on my sides for that reason. Mm-hmm. So that it opens up more of my space. And if you can turn it off out of combat, it's going to be a little weird not seeing my bars all the time. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it would be really nice and really kind of cool to be able to run around throughout the world and not have that UI always ever present in your face.
It kind of reminds me in that sense of like when you're playing an action game, like just a normal action game. You always have like on your controller you can hit like the D-pad and bring up little menus and stuff like that. But while you're fighting and just going, it's not there, so it's not in your way. So it kind of reminds me of something like that. Like they keep it tucked away when you don't want it, and then when you need it, it's there. You can activate it with certain qualifiers.
Yeah, and that's the thing I like about Wildstar. That their like priority is it to be a traditional MMO, but also for you to play the way you want it and the way you have your UI set up and stuff.
For sure. They've done really well in general to make it. There's not much in the game that I've heard of that you can't do something with. I mean, they've built their entire base UI, even this one that they're showing us, they've built it out of completely just add-ons. It's set up as an add-on. So
they encourage add-ons. They encourage you to make add-ons and do all this stuff yourself, I think, right?
Yeah, and they're very open to the add-on and customization community. So I think it's good, though, that they're not just, leaning back on that, like, oh, somebody will make an add-on, we don't have to do anything. They're actually, actively working to make just their default UI that with that much customization, which is a great thing to have. Because not everybody likes to use add-ons, or maybe not everybody can afford, the space required to use an add-on for whatever reason if they're playing at the minimum specs or anything like that. So it's good to see them putting the effort in to make a good base UI. And they even said that this one they just made is still a work in progress.
Right.
That anything could change on this. And something that they pointed out, that I've seen this brought up several times on streams, and I know it's a beta, but they have a little menu system that kind of buries a lot of information, or they had to this point. And what they did is they took a lot of that information, which a big thing I saw a lot of streamers complaining about was the path progression. You can't see it anywhere on the UI right now. You have to go into a menu that's buried to open up a window to find it.
See how far you are.
Exactly.
Right.
And what they've done is they pulled that path regression out and put it in the bottom right side bar.
That's good.
So you can see your path progression. And then they also said what they might do with that at some point is add the ability to track, like reputations or your trade skills or other things like that. So they're still building on it, which is nice.
Maybe I read it wrong, but in the article, didn't it say that you could only change the path experience to reputation? Because if you can't change experience, what happens at max level?
Well, they have two separate bars on the picture. There's one on the left and one on the right, and the one on the left shows the experience, and then the one on the right shows the path. So right now it's separated, but that's a good question. They didn't say anything about max level, like what would happen there. I would guess it would just disappear. But maybe that's part of the whole thing that they're talking about, being able to track things. Maybe it'll turn into another tracker for you. Who knows? It's really hard to say. Another thing we saw from Gaffney this week is he was talking about the balancing player feedback versus the hard data that they have in the game. To quote what he said here, he said, "We look for possible issues via forum feedback, for instance, but rarely want to move on things without seeing data to support it. Combat is too easy and combat is too tough are common concurrent complaints." Ooh, say that 10 times fast. For instance, probably as with most games, but data lets you know that a level 6 mob has a higher kill count than any other, and that only 3% of people died in a particular zone per hour, means another area can feel too face-rolly, and sets of people had very different experiences and thus issues. So what he means here basically is that people might sometimes come and say, like he said, oh, this is way too hard or too easy, but the fact that they can see the hard data of, everybody's beating this or, everybody's getting killed here isn't always the same as what people are saying. And it's interesting that happens, and I wonder why that would be. If the data is showing that, something is fine, but people are like, no, this is too hard, is it just like what their break off would be? Like if 48% of the people are okay with it, or like 30% of the people are okay with it? Like, I wonder where they decide that the hard feedback means more than the data.
Mm-hmm. I like that Gaffney is coming out and saying this, because you can't just say, oh, well, this person said it's too easy. Well, this person said it's too hard, because they both play differently and they both are maybe better than one another.
That's true.
And the hard evidence shows the truth. And the fact that he's coming out and saying that 3% of people died in a particular zone per hour, like level 6 mobs have a higher kill count than any other.
Mm-hmm.
It's fact. You can't argue with fact or with evidence and facts. So I really like that he came out and said that.
Yeah, because you get to a point where if you keep doing that in a game, well, let's go with the example of things are too hard. So there's a small group of people that thoroughly enjoy things that just run them into a brick wall that they just have to keep running into until they can break through it. But I'm willing to bet that more people are considered what you would call a casual player, and I don't mean that as a dirty word, so nobody is offended, but the people that, that might not necessarily have the time, they have other commitments, life, work, kids, whatever, they can't take the time and they get frustrated and walk away, where the company wants you to stay, especially in an MMO. It's a consistent world. They want you to come back every month and pay your money. So some of them run into the trap where they're like, well, people are saying this is too hard, we have to make it easier, so they'll stay. And then over time, it just wears down the complete value and core of the game to where it's not that great. Mm-hmm. So I like that they're saying, we listen, but we want to try and stay true to the vision of the game.
They definitely have to figure out a way to balance both combat and players, because not everybody's going to handle the same fight the same way every single time. Regardless of if they're a hardcore or casual, and again, not a dirty word, it's never going to be the same way unless you're so good at predicting the positioning of a mob and all of that you can make it that way, which is almost impossible.
Earlier in the quote, and I didn't read all of the quote, just the end of it, but earlier in the quote he does say, we're not going to be a game for everyone.
Right.
And they've kind of gone with that concept. They've said before on Reddit and other articles and stuff that we will have content that only 1% of our players will obtain or even see, and we are okay with that.
And you gotta understand that although the game is meant for the consumer, and you want to appeal to your consumer, they also have a vision for their game that they want to follow. So like, although it might be something you might not like, they might not change it because it's like their vision of the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they want to change some big things to pull people in. They also don't want to get too far from their vision.
And they've done a good job so far of listening to people. I mean, they even come on Reddit and other Wildstar Central, Wildstar fans. They listen to people, not just on the beta forums, but other suggestions. I've seen it happen. But in this case, I wonder, though, because nobody's really gotten into the nitty-gritty. They've listened to things about, like the UI was a good example of that. Like the UI or, other little elements like that. But I wonder once we get into the game, once it's launched and, they start doing stuff like balancing and things like that, if that's when they'll have to draw a line and say, sorry, no.
Yeah.
Because you're going to take away from our game. And then I wonder at that point what the feedback would be, because everybody's, so accustomed to this, they just take everything and listen.
It's like if you're telling Wildstar they should be like a medieval fantasy game, they're not going to change it because their vision is a sci-fi future game. So, I mean, you just kind of have to see it from their perspective.
I'm really hoping, though, that they do stick with that kind of more leaning towards the hardcore play experience, because I think that's the audience they're going for. They're looking for the people who were, disenfranchised by WoW after it decided to become a little more casual. Again, not a dirty word, but not...
Yeah, we're not talking about WoW.
I know, I'm sorry. But it's just not for everybody. I mean, there's people that do enjoy that, and they wouldn't see content otherwise, but there are people that really want to have a hardcore game experience, and I think that's what Wildstar offers to a lot of people. A lot of those people who played in the early days of WoW will really enjoy what they're going for here.
See, this actually kind of makes me really curious, because I wonder where that cut point is. Where is the cut point between a hardcore player and, someone who's not going to be able to complete it ever? So where are they going to make that point and say, okay, well, we can reduce it to this point, but after that, no. Where is that?
Well, and that's another thing, too, is that they've talked about, like, 20 and 40-man rating was a good example. They said that the 20-man rating will be for, the average player, the one who can put in the time, who, wants to do that kind of content. 20-man rating is going to be more for people who have time to put in and who, the more casual player who might have a little bit more time. It's still going to take some coordination to do it, but it's going to be a lot more accessible than the 40-man rating, which is going to be for people that have, the time and can put in the effort to deal with the logistics of a 40-man raid, first of all, because that's insane. And that content is going to be more for those people. But the thing, too, that they've added with all this extra other content, like the Elder Game content they have, adventures, ship hands, dungeons, they have all kinds of challenges, housing, they have all these extra other features that people can do even if they're not interested in raiding or can't get in raiding for whatever reason. So they have content that can apply to a casual player, depending on what your level of casual might be. So they're not really excluding anybody, I don't think. If you can't get into the 40-man raids, then no, you shouldn't get the same kind of rewards as other people. There needs to be a cutoff somewhere, and that's the problem that I think they might run into, like I said before, is that, right now they're kind of like, here's sunshine and rainbows, and we love everyone, and we'll change anything, and then you get to a point where they just can't do that and keep the integrity of the game as it is right now.
Some people think that, I don't have enough time to be doing this, and, it's not my fault. I might just be trying to sustain my family, so I want the same rewards, but I just can't do the same things.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree with that. I agree with you because these people are putting their time and money into a game where they're trying to accomplish great things by grinding and going with their guilds and doing raids and getting all those ingredients and making stuff. You know, that's their time, and that's what they're choosing to do with it, and they're getting rewarded for it. So I think that's how it should be. I mean, it's unfortunate for people that may just not have time, but, you know, for the people who actually do put their, you know, time and money into this game, or any game, then, you know, they should be rewarded for their time and dedication to it.
A big topic that came up this week on the Reddit, and has come up quite often actually, is the topic of Oceanic Servers and data centers and the lag to Wildstar. Because it's an action-based game, it actually means a lot more to Wildstar than it would to another MMO. Typically, the Oceanic region will include places like Australia and New Zealand, all the islands in that area. And it's kind of notorious in most MMOs that they don't have their own data centers. So most of the time, these people will play with a latency of about 200 plus on a good day, which is quite a big lag for a game like Wildstar, where it seems telegraphs, even just leveling and questing, it seems they're very punishing. If you can't get out of them, you're probably going to die, and that would make for a very frustrating gaming experience. And there's a big movement that people are upset that have played in beta or stress tests or whatever, which they probably shouldn't be talking about on Reddit, but whatever, it's there. They're saying that they have so much lag that it almost makes the game unplayable. And I saw there's a website that's actually called Wildstar Census. It's part of another website, I forget which one it is. You can Google Wildstar Census. About 8,500 people have taken this survey, and it asks you things, the obvious things like what race, what class, you know, all that stuff. But one of them asks, you know, player location. And on that survey of 8,500 people, 419 people are Oceanic players, or 4.9%. Which, even though it's a small survey, I would say in general that's, I mean, it's definitely a smaller region as far as MMO players go. 4.9 might be a little less. I'd say maybe in an MMO you get maybe close to 10%. I would say about 8% would be Oceanic, if that. So these people are just saying that they basically can't play the game. And I wonder, though, if it would be a good idea for Carbine or Wildstar, more specifically because they're produced by NCSoft, who hosts their servers. Would it be beneficial for them to put a data center in the Oceanic region for what is relatively a small percent of the player base?
Right, especially at launch, because WoW didn't have Oceanic servers until about a year after WoW was initially released in 2004. So, and
the other thing too is that, you know, this is a new IP. So while we'd love it to be amazing, top, awesome MMO of all time, we don't know how successful it'll be.
Right.
It's the thing.
So it might be, from their perspective, they might think it's a risk to put a data center and servers in these areas because maybe, you know, 4.9% is small. It may be unfair to those people, you know, they're getting over 200 latency, but
yeah,
from a business standpoint, it may not make too much sense to be putting stuff there unless it's a bigger hit than they expect for those people.
Well, and I think the thing that most people don't really take into consideration, like, I know I would be upset if there was a game that I really, really liked and I just couldn't play it because of something like that. I can understand the frustration, but the thing that people aren't really looking at, I think, is that one, the data centers aren't hosted by Carbine. It's not Carbine doing it. These people are getting so upset and, you know, frustrated at Carbine or Wildstar or anything like that. These servers are actually hosted by NCSoft, the production company for Wildstar. Or the production company of Carbine. So they're the ones who decide where the servers go. But I think that if the game is successful enough, I mean, like we were saying, that, you know, WoW didn't have any at launch either. And WoW was already an established franchise. They had Warcraft behind it. So they had that going in, and they still didn't have Oceanic Servers until about a year after they launched. Their first two didn't launch until November of '05. So I think that, like you're saying, it's a big risk for these companies, or for Carbine rather, to put the data center there, at least at launch. I think, though, that if it became popular enough and enough people wanted it, and there was a big drive for it, and they could see the profitability in it. I mean, unfortunately, it is a business in the end.
Right.
I know that they care about us and they'd love to, but they still have to make money off of it. I think that if they saw that, though, that they would. They would put data centers there. I mean, they're definitely going to have servers that are labeled as Oceanic, I would hope. So at least people trying to set up raids and stuff, because it's, like a 10-hour time difference, 6-hour time difference from most people. So that's a huge difference, trying to set up raids and stuff for people that want to do that. I think that they will eventually. Another thing, too, that might help with this, I know that there's like websites and programs and stuff out there that people in the Oceanic region have used typically to help with the lag. Wildstar has actually said that because they're an action-based MMO, that they do have some kind of lag assist feature. I read that somewhere, and I couldn't, unfortunately, find the quote I needed in time before we recorded. But I don't remember if they said they moved it from client side or server side. They switched it, basically, so that it'll help with that because of the nature of the game, just in general, not even people from the Oceanic region. It'll just help people in general. So they're trying to do what they can to negate some of that latency issue. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm not sure that there's much they can do to do a lot of it without putting a data center actually into that area.
I mean, let's hope we do, because you people in the Oceanic area, you Australians and New Zealand, whatever the correct term is for that. I'm sure you guys hate the latency if you played WoW or any other MMOs or any game. Because I know it annoys me. I can't imagine how it must be every day. Yeah. Hopefully for you guys, they put one there.
If people want to get a hold of NCSoft and let them know, like, hey, we'd like to have this. If you speak loud enough, maybe they'll listen, but people do need to get a hold of NCSoft and not Carbine. I actually found a page. It was hard to find an email exactly for them, but I'll put a link to it in the description. But it's global.ncsoft.com/global/support/request.aspx. And like I said, I will leave that link in the description for anybody that wants to contact them and let them know we would like an Oceanic server for Wildstar. That would be great. An Oceanic data center. Yeah.
And it would benefit, because if people were to know that there are data centers and servers up in the Oceanic area, the more people from that area will probably come knowing that their servers are great. And
I mean, I think it would certainly help, because games even like League of Legends, they were one of the first games to kind of launch with that and say, okay, we're going to support this full on, and we all know how successful League of Legends is. So it definitely wouldn't hurt anything. I think it's just a big risk for them right now. So we'll see. Hopefully they can get some data centers up in that area.
This is actually coming from their Facebook page. They were talking about an adventure stream
Yay.
This weekend.
You predicted that last week.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've actually seen
them
any
streaming
from Wildstar. So
yeah,
I'll be watching that myself. I'm not exactly sure what time it is. Do you know what time?
I think it's at noon Pacific time on March 1st. So that would be this Saturday, actually.
Oh, very cool.
So yeah, and that'll be fun. The adventures look great. That's probably one of the features I'm looking forward to seeing the most, because they talked about how, it gets like a little pop-up window and everybody chooses the things they want to do, and it just, those look so fun. I can't wait to see how those play out.
Personally, I'm more of a raid-minded person, so I really want to see more of that. And adventures, yeah, they're really cool, but I feel like it's going to kind of get annoying, maybe, within a whole lot of people always wanting to run maybe one or two of them because they want a specific boss, and their groups aren't letting them get that boss because of a certain choice. And I do remember them saying something about bosses had specific loot.
But it's always randomized, too, is the other thing. We actually talked about that last week on the show, that there is no optimal path. It's always randomized. You're not going to get the same bosses for picking the same choices every time.
I can see myself getting very irritated at that.
Well, it's meant to just be something to kind of supplement the dungeon experience. Something kind of fun, something kind of different. Just like a little story you can play out.
And it'd be kind of cool. I mean, they don't want to reveal too many of their secrets, but it'd be kind of cool if they threw in like a raid or something. Just like a small section of a raid.
That would be
I would
cool.
even like to see one boss, especially after seeing some mechanics that they've thrown into this other stuff.
Just the dungeons.
I want to know.
Yeah.
The raid bosses.
The dungeons seem hard. I can't imagine a raid. I imagine like the trash in a raid would probably be the equivalent of a boss in a dungeon, almost.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That'd be weird.
The telegraphs would be insane. Like we were talking about that last boss of
We have to do like
Kelvarath.
backflips
And that was a dungeon.
jump through hoops.
Yeah. Raids are gonna be insane.
Cook
Oh
a
man.
burrito in the microwave and
I don't see them making a tank and spank boss, and that's something that I appreciate. And at the same time, I know that I'm gonna miss that going in on the first night and just one-shotting a boss.
yeah. So what we've seen, we haven't seen any of that thanks spank stuff. So I miss that. And wow, I mean, for like we were talking about before, the casual player, again, not a dirty word, but maybe that taking spank was good for them because it was easy. Like you just totally destroyed the boss in like 5 seconds and that was over and they got their loot and they can go back to work. I'm also not going to miss it because it keeps you more active, like Ryan was saying. So
No more sandwiches during raid.
So this week we got some Twitter updates on their Wildstar Twitter.
Yeah, so what they said was this week's beta invites have gone out. That's it for this phase of beta, so be sure to check your emails. Someone replied to that saying, so if I'm reading this right, closed beta is ending or just no more closed beta invite. And what they said was, we'll have more news about the next phase of beta in the coming weeks.
It's kind of a weird tweet if you think about it. It's kind of a good sign that we're either going into open beta or it's coming out relatively soon, in my opinion.
I would hope that that doesn't mean we're going into another beta. I mean, because we want the game to come out soon, but yeah.
Because like if it was like, oh, we're just not sending out anymore because we're at capacity or whatever, then they would say that. They wouldn't be like, oh, we'll give out more information.
Lead people along.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it sounds like we might be getting ready for open beta.
At least open beta.
Yeah, because
yeah.
they haven't given any indication that the game is going to be pushed back yet. I hope it doesn't. I know it's been pushed back a couple times, been in development for several years. But yeah, I mean, everything I've seen so far, I've seen Gaffney come up several times and say, yeah, we're still on target for our spring release. So that gives them a couple more months. We talked about that on the last episode. That gives them until, what, May? Mid-June-ish? Somewhere in there? To hit the spring window.
Right.
So yeah.
And last week we also talked about a marketing event. There is another marketing event this weekend. Was it the same way?
I saw a couple more contests. I didn't see any that were just like, go put in your email, get a key, like they did with Godanki last time. I saw a lot more contests going on, though. A couple of the sites that have like premium services, like IGN and Curse, that have, you can pay monthly, you get access to beta keys and like extra services and things like that. A couple of those sites did add the weekend keys to their premium package, if you will. There were a couple more streaming events going on, a couple more just contests. I saw a fan art contest was one of them, and those are always really cool to see fan art.
Right.
That's pretty much all I can think of. Yeah, there was streams, contests, things like that going on to get the keys. But the interesting thing, too, is that they're having their marketing weekend this weekend, and Elder Scrolls is actually having another beta weekend this weekend. So they are head-to-head competing with each other this time.
Yeah, and I've actually gotten some beta invites myself.
To Elder Scrolls?
The Elder Scrolls, correct.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of the idea of an online Elder Scrolls game. But,
yeah.
I mean, I haven't played it, so I guess I can't talk too much for myself.
I did play it in the last weekend event, which I think was about 2 weeks ago now. I did get another invite for this one. And it's not even a bias just because I like Wildstar. I objectively wanted to try Elder Scrolls. And what I've told people is that I feel like it's good as an Elder Scrolls game, but it's not good as an MMO, is the best way I can put it. I didn't get the MMO feel from it, and I don't feel like it's something that I would want to pay monthly for.
Right.
It's not a bad game on principle, but just I don't feel like I'd pay for it. Alright guys, well that's going to be it for us today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching again. Follow me on Twitter at Jazzy_Chua. You can subscribe to Nuttz YouTube channel for reviews, playthroughs, and commentaries on lots of different games. YouTube.com/Cluffy142. CLOUGHIE142. For anyone out there looking for a guild for Wildstar, we have you covered. You can come check out our Dominion-based Wildstar guild at lswildstar.com. We want to thank our guest Ryan for coming on.
Yay.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks for showing up, buddy. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to our videos. We are always looking for feedback on the show and how we can get any better. Hopefully this week it was much better for you.